Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. I just got back from my health and wellness appointment. I've talked to you guys about doing TRT, and I'm sharing that experience on my Patreon. You guys could see it linked down below, and also the uncensored version of this because we have to talk about Chinamen and women. The Chinese. I should have just said that in the first place. It seems a little racist that I didn't. I am also doing this episode unedited. You know why? I don't have the time. I got an appointment, so you're just going to have to deal with me. If I make mistakes, just deal with it. So on the health and wellness front, I stopped doing the gel because I happen to be half Korean. This, again, has nothing to do with the Chinaman story. We'll get to that in a second. But I have no hair on my chest. I was born with that gift of being half Korean from the waist down. And I'm going to stick with that. That's what I'm going with. But from the waist up, I'm just a white guy. No hair anywhere. And I started putting on that cream, and this isn't a sales pitch because I don't sell testosterone cream. And I started growing hair on my chest on the strip of where I used to put the cream. I also don't want to cross-contaminate my kids and have my daughter walking around with a beard at the age of 5. I'm not into that. So just letting you know, I'm going to go into more details because I did get the blood test results. I'll share those results on the patreon.com/Mike Glover side, and it's free. Again, this isn't a sales pitch. If you want further education on things that I talk about and you find value out of what you're getting, again, most of this is not sponsored. And if you're interested, you guys could check the Patreon link down below. I said that 3 times, and that's what I was going for. So we're talking about 2 Chinese nationals who decided it was a good idea. Let me set the stage for you. A little story. You'll remember it better if it's a story. So a Chinese couple, one of which is a scientist, likely in graduate level programs at the University of Michigan, they go to China. They decide to come back, and on the way back, Border Patrol, Customs, discovers that the gentleman, his name is Liu, and his girlfriend, Jian, are smuggling biological pathogens into the United States. Now, initially, old Liu lies. And he says, no, this isn't what this is about. And then he tells a contradictory story, which is pretty crazy because he said, no, this isn't what this is. This isn't a big deal. And then he just spills the beans. And he admits that he was smuggling the pathogen in so that he could conduct research on it at a laboratory at the University of Michigan where his girlfriend, Jian, worked. And that's in quotations. So legitimately, this guy was smuggling a biological agroterrorism-related pathogen called Fusarium graminearum. I feel like that's like you Harry Potter fans. I should be moving the wand when I say that. Fusarium graminearum. And it causes head blight, which is a significant crop disease that destroys and decimates crops across the globe in high numbers. We're talking billions of dollars a year in damage. It also causes diarrhea, vomiting, liver issues in both livestock and human beings. Now, are you surprised by this? I'm more surprised. I'm less surprised that they were caught smuggling the pathogen. I would imagine that if it was the last administration, they would just blame it on a wet market or something, like some kind of unattributed, very bland reason for why they had that. Oh, no. He was bringing the pathogen in for research. We should give him an award or something. Give him a honorary master's degree at the University of Michigan. So I'm not surprised. You shouldn't be surprised either. I'm more surprised that Customs and Border Patrol identified the two and then were given the green light to start the Q&A session And then through that process, discovered that legitimately he had an illegal pathogen. That is super surprising to me. Even more surprising is the amount of Chinese nationals I've discovered that are having some issues and getting compromised in their spy games. Because that's what this is. It's a spy game. For sure, a large percentage, I have no facts to back this, but I used to work for the CIA, and I saw their games, some of their shenanigans. What I would tell you is there is likely a large percentage of the student population of international visa-approved students that are in our public universities that are spies for their countries, especially for adversaries. I mean, you probably don't have a spy coming from Sweden. That blonde in your chem class, not that I'm stereotyping here, but I figure most people from Sweden would be blonde and beautiful. Yeah, she's not a spy. But the Chinese nationalists that are in your biology class or your lab getting their advanced degree are doing so with the direct support of the CCP, not only financially providing support, but likely they were going to Spy University for their undergraduate. Now, here's what's interesting about Liu is he pops smoke immediately. He's the smart China person. The China woman, not so smart. Jian, you would think is super intelligent because she has a degree, a doctorate from Zhejiang University. Guess what her degree's in? Plant pathogens. Huh. I wonder if we should be paying attention to the advanced scientist student who's a doctor of science specializing in pathogens at Zhejiang University. And that's probably not how you pronounce it again. I apologize if that seems insensitive, but that's at least phonetically how it looks. Zhejiang University. I promise I only have 2 more of those, and then I'll stop. But you would think that that's the person you want to keep an eye on. Now, this could have been an intelligence operation, too. So I haven't lost hope. How it's being reported and how Kash Patel tweeted it is giving me some indications that it might have been an intelligence community, IC operation, where they were tracking these guys, and they decided to potentially pull them into secondary when they landed, which is common. It's happened to me. Happened to me in Saudi Arabia, which was scary. And you pull them in, and you start asking them questions, and you search them, and then wha-bam, biological pathogen. The left has decided not to report on this, and it makes sense to me. When Harvard University's student body is made up of almost 30% international students with obvious financial incentives for that, and rapport building and corruption likely. I mean, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Your kids want to come to college? Of course, bring them on over. When it's being used in the right way to negotiate diplomatic ties and relationship, that's different. But I'm not sure why we're not tracking every China person that's in this country under a student visa or that's here illegally. So it doesn't paint a good picture for the university aspect as the administration is combating in conflict, for sure, against these universities and their federal funding. If you knew your federal taxpayer dollars were paying for the advanced degree for Jian, which they have been, by the way, that's part of what this is, and that your taxpayer dollars were facilitating or enabling her education in pathogens, and she was caught smuggling biological pathogens that could destroy a lot of people, livestock, and crops, would you want that money going to them? Absolutely not. I mean, I would think that you don't want that money to go into international students at all when it could be diverted to American students who need the education, who are grossly in debt in this nation. So that's first thing first. The second most concerning thing about this, and I'll talk about more of this in the uncensored version because there are some sensitivities to this is the second case tried by federal prosecutors in Michigan for the University of Michigan in the same week. I mean, the same 7-day stretch. Last Friday, you see, federal prosecutors prosecuted a former University of Michigan Chinese student who voted illegally in 2024. You don't say. An international student meddling in elections. You don't say. And who do you think he voted for? Yeah. He definitely didn't vote for Trump. So they just discovered this and they prosecuted him. But guess what? Just like Liu, who's the smart Chinaman, and he's actually was a man and he was Chinese. That's why Chinaman. He went back, and so did this guy. So has he been caught? No, he fled in 2024 to avoid prosecution. So maybe it's symbolic because we're saying, hey, you can never come back because you voted in a 2024 election, which, again, one of the reasons why we're asking for a ID to vote, since you have to have an ID to get you have to have an ID to get a driver's license, which is crazy. But you got a driver's license. So to do anything logistically for yourself as a human being in this country, you'd have to have an ID. To buy a beer, to use a debit card at a gas station, to go get health care, to whatever it is, you have to have an ID. And for some reason, we don't think that's right because we are disproportionately isolating minorities and elderly people that want to vote but can't now because they don't have the ID. Well, they're likely not doing anything with their lives and living in their mom's basement, which is why they don't need an ID card because mom's doing it for them. So what's the big deal? Well, it's a big deal because we start to identify fraud, corruption, illegal activity like voting in a presidential election as an international student. Here's what's even more interesting. There's an allegation that members of the CCP were involved in spying when, in October, federal prosecutors charged 5 University of Michigan students who were from China, so they were Chinamen, found on a military facility in northern Michigan in 2023 during a U.S. National Guard training exercise with members of the Taiwanese military. Now, why would they be there? Well, because they want to see what the Taiwanese are doing, because they're Chinese and they're not big fans, and they want to see the capabilities of the American military might. And how would you do that? Well, you'd have cameras near numerous military vehicles, tents, and classified communications. And this happened during training operation Northern Strike, one of the largest U.S. National Guard training exercises in the United States. Now, after they graduated from the University of Michigan in May of 2024, they all fled. But they were charged anyway. Again, let's just say it was their undergraduate degree. Just say they're getting their bachelor's for 4 years. So we had 5 Chinamen that were in this country legally going to school, and we discover after their education and after at least 4 years in the country that they were spying on behalf of the CCP. Why wasn't this caught before? And why are we charging people that we can no longer get our hands on? Well, it's about setting a precedent, I guess, a standard, and demonstrating that, hey, we know what you did, or we know what you're doing, and we're keeping an eye on you. But that was disappointing to learn. Yes, we caught you spying, but too late, you're already gone. So the question is, and I think this ties into the national security question, and then your personal protection, as we just did a video on this Boulder, Colorado terrorist attack, in nearly the same week that a guy winds up shooting and killing an Israeli couple that worked in the Israeli embassy. And we've had a string and a run of political terrorism, extremist attacks over the last 30 days. I mean, really, it's kicked off really since Trump said he was going to run and this assassination attempt happened. So, a huge problem. I don't think you, as an American citizen, want your taxpayer dollars going to international students who are spying on the country or smuggling pathogens in. I'm surprised we haven't diverted this conversation already in the national media, blaming it on a wet market because a monkey pooped on a bird, or maybe a bird prefers to poop on a monkey. But that happened. And we're allowing people who study at the main CCP recruiting center, Zhejiang University, and we're surprised? I don't think anybody's surprised. And it won't be talked about. So if this is the one that got caught, old Lou got caught, actually, he smartly diverted it on his girlfriend who got rolled up, and he popped smoke, so maybe he's the smarter of the two. But if this is the one that got discovered, how many have slipped through the cracks? And that's a real question. What can we do to prepare for this? Well, you're going to have to subscribe to my Patreon. I'll link it down below. And I'm talking about health and wellness. We did a Q&A session today, part 2 for Tier 1 members. And also, we're getting back into reinvigorating what's called speedball. Now, speedball is important to mention before I digress into the underground episode, because speedball is your capability to not just handle the mugging at the gas station for your ATM card, but the potential terrorist attack. Like some loser from Colorado Springs by way of Egypt, who's in this country illegally, starts tossing Molotov cocktails into your group. We'll talk about that. Lastly, I want to say, shame on the federal judge who stopped the deportation of that dude's family, including his 5 kids and wife. Now, I'm sympathetic to the children because they, for sure, the younger ones, probably didn't know that this was going down with their old man. But their old man is what he is. He's a terrorist. And terrorists get no sympathy. And they overstayed their B2 visa in February of 2023. That's when it expired. And what's a B2 visa? A temporary visa to come into the country, to visit, to shop around, to visit people, but not to shove pathogens up your butt and smuggle them in the country. He didn't have a pathogen in his butt. That would have been funny, though, if it was. And also, if you're a terrorist who's here illegally, well, I'm sorry, but your family doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Despite the national media, who for sure picked up this headline and said, daughter of Mohammed Salman wanted to study in America and live the American dream. However it was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here. But I'm sorry. If your old man conducts a terrorist attack coming from Egypt and you guys are seeking asylum after the fact, you got to go. We don't pay enough attention to these things, and when they come across our radar, we have to do something about them. And I know it's hard for this country to deal with this because we're afraid of things like due process. I completely understand. But how much process do you need when you're in the country illegally already, having committed the crime, and we need to get you out? We don't have time to do due process litigation for every single illegal because you already broke the law. So due process is, yep, you broke the law. Bye. See you later. Get in line. And if you do it the right way because you self-deport via the app, well, then you can get back in line. If not, see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Guys, I appreciate you. I'm headed off to the underground, and I think I got through that in 19 minutes and 40, by the time this is done, 55 seconds. Zhejiang University. There you go. Till next time. Peace out.